First of all, how much can you remember? Because you are quite old now. How much can you remember? You're welcome. How much can you remember of, like, did you do GCSE or BTEC?
I did both.
Both?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't actually. No, that's a lie. I did. What did we do? We did A level, and then in GCSE I did GCSE music theory.
GCSE,
Uh,
that was EdXL, wasn't it?
it
No, it
was
was
with.
OCR.
I'm not sure.
No worries. I remember
Didn't pay that
teaching.
much attention.
No worries, because I remember teaching there a group before I got put in charge of BTEC, and it was OCR, yeah, because
Right, right.
they didn't have set works. So no
It
worries, you can't remember much of GCSE.
it was with Paul Fisher and Greg Ingram. That's what I remember. And we just covered music theory, different types of music from around the world, and had to perform on instruments, etc.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
But I
But
didn't really enjoy it.
now,
That's the interesting thing. It was only when we started doing A levels together that I started to actually enjoy music and more the technology side of it.
interesting.
Because I went into sixth form wanting to do something to do with sports,
Hmm.
but I came out of sixth form wanting to do something with music technology. So it was those A
Fascinating.
levels that changed it.
So I tell you what, let's fast forward a little bit and we'll come back to this, because for people listening, I think it's important at the beginning for them to know, what is it you are currently doing? And then we'll backtrack.
I'm an audio engineer in the broadcast industry, sports broadcast, and specifically for Formula One.
Nice.
So they're one of the only sports in the world that have their own in-house broadcast team.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah, so if it's football, it could be lots of different types of broadcast teams because there's so many different matches going on around the world. They obviously can't have one thing in one place at all the time. So, but with F1, because there's only one race ever happening, they
Mm.
can afford to just have the same team travel around to broadcast it to make sure it's consistent. So I'm part of that team in the audio department. So we're responsible for anything world feed related. So we make the product and then we sell it to the likes of, for the UK, Sky Sports will broadcast it in the UK, or if it's in, America, ESPN, or like Nent in
Wow.
the Netherlands and things. So we make a product and then sell it to the broadcasters to put it on the telly.
That's incredible.
Um,
And obviously, your job takes you all over the world, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I rarely ever work in the UK. It's I've just got back from Budapest, so that the race happened on Sunday. It's now Tuesday, so we packed everything up Sunday night, and I flew back yesterday, and now I'm here.
Fantastic. Oh, mate, that's incredible. So, um, tell us three other places, like top three places where you've been that you've
With
really enjoyed.
with F1 or
Yeah,
with
yeah,
previous,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, I would say Texas, Austin, Texas was a good
Nice.
one. Uh, there's almost 500,000 people there that week, and
Wow.
it was bouncing. The Netflix series Drive to Survive has made a massive impact on attendance now.
Brilliant.
So no matter where you go, there's always this big crowd now. It's just grown and grown and grown over the COVID times when the Netflix series was being watched. So I think there was something silly like a 400% increase in
Whoa.
attendance to the Austin, Texas Grand Prix. So that was a good one. That was really fun. Mexico City as well was good, and recently Canada, Montreal was really nice, really nice.
Mate, that,
But you've got lots. Austria is probably my favorite of the year. The Austrian race is stunning in the mountains. I like being up mountains a lot. So if I get any spare time, we can do some hikes or some climbs or whatever. So
That's
you do get
incredible.
to see some nice places. There's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It's not a holiday.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want it to sound like it's a holiday because it's definitely not. You know, it's
But you do
like
get a little bit of free time.
yeah. Sometimes you can find some free time, but in the broadcast industry, the days are long, very
Hmm.
very long.
Roughly how
You know,
many hours?
roughly on average, I'd say about 14 hours. Sometimes it can be more. Sometimes
Wow.
you can have good days where it's short. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's long days.
Yeah, I bet.
Can be quite draining.
Now, to give people who are watching a little bit of context, the main reason I'm interviewing you, even though you're not strictly in the music industry, is because there are lots of people who take qualifications even though they have no idea what they actually want to do with it, or they still have no idea what to do as an actual career.
Yeah,
And lots of people may not realize all the kinds of careers that may open up if you take a course such as music technology. So this, I think, is a really, really fascinating thing for people to find out more about. So now we know that fantastic, like, incredible lifestyle. And considering your lifestyle at the moment, like, thank you so much for making the time to even do this with
no
me.
problem.
It's
No, it's all good.
incredible. No, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate even just chatting with you, to be honest, Scott. It's really good to catch up anyway. But I really, really appreciate the time for this. So let's backtrack again to Music Tech A level. All right. First of all, what did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? What aspects of it did you enjoy? What aspects of it didn't you enjoy?
I did enjoy it, and that's obviously down to you mainly. You taught it, so.
Oh yeah.
uh,
It was me, Mr.
but
Fisher.
yes, yeah, it was. There was two of you,
Hmm.
but I found that you made it engaging. I found, and just working out how to capture sounds
Hmm.
and putting them, yeah, onto onto digital format was quite fun. You know, recording from an analog instrument and turning it into digital, which I found quite fun and just fascinating. You could be really creative.
Ah,
Um,
absolutely. To be fair, I've just remembered just now, just talking about it. There was one lesson where we like some of the computers weren't working or something, so I improvised it a little bit, and we found a way to capture sound from like a ventilator shaft. We put the microphone all the way up there because there was like such a weird, really, really tiny sound, and we amplified it loads through one of the working computers and
yeah,
just experimented with loads of effects and to see how we could actually make it sound musical. That was really fun. I remember that.
yeah.
Sorry.
I know, and I remember one where we had to try and say our names in reverse, so that when we played them in reverse in Logic, it sounded like Scott. So you'd
Oh,
have to try
mate,
and
I
say
forgot
Scott
that.
backwards and then reverse it to try and make it sound. And that, just things like that was enjoyable. Recreating tracks like Daniel Bedingfield. I've got
Oh,
that song stuck in my head.
David
Every single
Bedingfield.
time it comes on, I just remember that course that we had to do to recreate it from scratch because we
Yeah,
must have listened to it,
yeah.
like over 1,000 times.
And there was that uh wasn't it called Hot something?
Hot
Uh
Chip.
Hot Chip.
Yeah.
Yes. I need to listen to that again. It's been a
Yeah.
while. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember what the song was called. Hot Chip.
Me neither.
Ready for the fall or ready for the
Ready
floor.
for the floor.
Ready for the
Yes.
floor. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a brilliant song. No matter how many times we listened to it, I always enjoyed it. But
Yeah.
also, because there may be people listening who are currently taking the music technology course, we can't have this conversation without talking about how you recreated, because it was The Boxer, wasn't it? Simon and Garfunkel that you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Please, you need to tell our listeners how you recreated some of those sounds, because that was just delicioso.
Well, it was just doing research into the track, and it sounded like an incredible setup. How the original track was
Mm.
recorded. I know. I remember the vocals was 12 mic'd, and they even had a mic for when he was playing the guitar. They had a mic on his breathing. It was that detailed, and
Mm.
obviously I didn't have time or resources to do that. But there's a really iconic snare sound in the chorus, like,
Yes.
and it just sounds mega. And I did research into how they recorded that, and they used a 12-story elevator shaft, and they put the snare at the bottom of the elevator shaft and the microphone at the top. And obviously, we didn't have that at the Grange. We didn't. I don't think we even had a lift, but we did have those filing cabinets in
Yeah.
the back. So I took all the drawers out of that. It wasn't big. It was probably about 2 meters, but it still gave it a nice little effect to it. You probably could have done it in post. You could have just stuck a reverb plug in and maybe tweaked with it. But I found it quite fun to capture it at source because,
Plus, that did get you some extra marks. I'm sure of
did
it.
it?
I'm sure of it. It was a nightmare
Excellent.
dragging it down the hallway, but it was really good. It was really good. I
Yeah.
was so impressed with that, like how you thought of that, the research you did. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So I mean, to relate that to what we do now, I mean, that's just about capturing sounds in different ways. But what we do now at work is we'll mess around with microphone arrays,
Mm.
and like the directions of microphones to capture the sound of the cars. So obviously a big side of what we do is just the track microphone. So when the cameras are following the cars, there's got to be sound to go with it. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of what we do, and we can have a lot of fun just like with that filing cabinet. We can experiment with different microphone arrays, different microphone types, and pickup patterns, and we can see how that then translate into how we capture the sound of Formula One cars, because lots of people don't ever get to experience the sound of a
Yeah.
Formula One car in
True.
person. It then falls upon us to try and make it as good as it possibly can for the people that are listening on the television. So
Yeah.
we take a lot of time to make sure that it's all as good as it can be. Um, so one of the things that we do, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's some cameras in curbs, and the cars will run over the camera. So the best possible way of matching that is to also get a microphone in that curb and have the car run over the microphone, and when it goes
Wow.
over at like 180 mile an hour, you can really hear the suction and that the car gives on the mic, and it just sounds really powerful. So
So
um,
um you actually have to put microphones on the tracks.
yeah, so usually most of them, I mean, around the racetrack we've got around about 150 microphones, and most of them are on the barriers just by the side. But every now
Yeah.
and again we because it would be difficult to do it 150 times to put microphones in the curb. But every now and again we probably have about 4 or 5 a race that we can put in the actual track itself, or on the grass just by the side of the track, um, just to get them so close to the car.
Yeah.
Um, and it does sound it's very unique sounding noise is
That's
is a is
brilliant.
a F1 car running over a microphone, basically. um,
So what did you do after A level to steer yourself towards this career? What did
yeah,
you
so
do after that?
I came out. I went into sixth form not wanting to do that. It was just more of a hobby because
Mm.
I played instruments
Yeah.
from my dad. My dad's very musical. He's in brass bands and orchestras, and he kind of passed on that trait to me. And I picked music just because I liked playing music. It was always just going to be a filler subject, basically.
Mm.
But yeah, like I said, it changed where that then became my main focus. So I went to university to do 3 years of music. What was it actually called? Audio and music production. So it wasn't so much playing the instrument. Every now and again, you could play an instrument just for testing microphones, but it was more to do with the technology of capturing it, not just music, but film and TV. I actually ended up doing some live sports broadcasting through it. We would do, Foley post production and things like that.
Mm.
So it was covering all sorts, but it was mainly just the technology of capturing audio and amplifying it. Like a live sound. We'd do a live sound course for
Yeah.
if people wanted to go off and do front of house engineering or monitor engineering or anything like that, then it covered a lot. I was really impressed at how much it covered, and that's exactly what I wanted, because I wasn't sure on the exact path that I wanted to go down. So I was quite grateful that I went on this course, and it covered so many different varieties of it, because that's why it's such a great thing to get into, because there's so many pathways that it can end up taking you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that's absolutely brilliant. Because I remember as well when I managed to take you on another trip to Spain, and you brought your laptop with me so you could do some work, and you were showing me a soundtrack that you were making to like part of a documentary, I think it was.
Yeah. That was a little project at
And
the
that
time.
was brilliant. It was just so good for me to see that you were still into like music production and stuff, and seeing where it was going. And seriously, I'm so happy for you that you found what you actually love to do. Can you see yourself doing this for quite a long time then?
Yeah. The nature of it can be quite tough. So before F1, I was in cricket, doing communications, so radio frequency communications, and that was particularly tough because cricket series can be 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and I wouldn't know about them until like 2 weeks beforehand. So it was very difficult sometimes, missing out on birthdays and like weddings and things, and just general socializing time. But with F1, the good thing is that the calendar gets made a year in advance, so you know where you're going to be. The maximum amount of time that I'm away for is 3 weeks, so it's not too bad. So I think this is a lot more long term than what I was previously doing. But again, it can be quite draining. All the travel, the different time zones, the different temperatures and altitudes and things. It can take its toll.
I can imagine.
But luckily, with COVID, there's always been a plan in F1 to remote broadcast it. So it's now split between a team that goes to the racetrack to capture everything, and then we send all of that back to the UK where it gets broadcasted. And so there is the option of you can either work at the racetrack or you can work at the headquarters in the UK. So that helps the longevity of it, I think. It gives people a break from traveling, but you can still work. Whereas before that, everything was done on site, so there was nothing you could do back at home. So that's helped, I think. So I think with that's sort of, like I said, increased the longevity of potentially working there. So, but I mean, as far as I can see in the future, I don't like to look ahead that much, but I see myself doing it for a while.
Brilliant. But would you say that you've found a particular passion now?
Yeah, for sure. Because like I said before, going into sixth form, I wanted to do something with sports, and then I came out wanting to do something with music tech, and somehow every single job that I've had outside of uni, my first one was football, then it was cricket, and now it's Formula One. So every single job I've had in audio engineering has been in sport. So I have managed.
It's through sort of the lens of music production, sort of music production skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the foundations that I've built on was music technology skills. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so, do you have any particular advice for any students who may be struggling to find sort of a passion or see sort of where they can see themselves going career-wise, if they're struggling with that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I feel like there's a lot of pressure put on people to make decisions early, to say, like you need to know what you want to do by so and so. But I found it in education that like the pathway just sort of narrowed and kept narrowing the further I got, and the options were they, in a good way, they were kind of, I was then starting to see what was clear. Like, okay, I know I want to do this, but then there's another big choice of what specific area within that subject that I want to do. So then it was nice just to then at the end of uni, it fully closed, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do now. So it took 20 years, like it's not something that you could just ask a 15-year-old kid, like, what do you want to do? You need to know what you want to do. Pick subjects now, like this
Yeah,
is a big
definitely.
choice. I feel like the pressure put on it is too much, and it's not particularly fair.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, this is something that I feel like I can chat with you now, chat with you about now as well. Is that that I feel is one of the main flaws with the education system in general, because it is too young. Loads of people say, and teachers and everyone says, and you need to have an idea of what you want to do because your GCSEs will decide everything.
Yeah,
Because it does start to
yeah,
narrow down more and more and more, doesn't it?
it does. Yeah, yeah. It
So,
still keeps it quite broad, but yeah, you know, it just limits, I think, and it's important to give yourself time, and it's fine not to know what you want to do. I mean, I still know people now who still don't know what they want to do, and there's no problem with that.
absolutely.
It just takes time, and I feel like it's yeah, you can get pressured into doing something that you don't feel passionate about, and I just think that's one of the worst things that can happen, is that you end up doing something that you don't feel passionate about and you don't want to do. So really take time to think about it. Don't make any rash decisions um, in picking pathways. Um, but I mean, if you did end up picking music technology, it's a great one because there's just so many different routes that you can go down.
Yeah.
So many different routes, and the more modern the world gets, the more roles appear for it. So if you think the amount of like my industry, the sports broadcast industry, everything is on the telly now. Ping pong, badminton, curling, all of these sports,
Yeah,
they
it's all
need a
televised.
broadcast. It's all televised. If it's on the telly, you need a team of engineers to put it on the telly. Um, and the freelance world. I'm not freelance. I'm staff, but we work with loads of freelancers. And they can't. I mean, during COVID, it was tough because no sports were happening. It
Yeah.
was quite a scary time. But now everything's opened up. They can't move for work. There's so many roles out there. Um, you know, so
What do you
it's a
think?
great industry.
Sorry, because this is quite a good avenue to go down for like BTEC students who need to
Yeah,
learn about the difference between freelance and contracted staff.
yeah.
What do you think the main pros and cons are of between those two kinds of roles?
So I've done both. I was a freelancer before I was staff, um, and I don't know what I prefer, to be honest. They both have benefit. Obviously, as a staff member, I don't have to worry about paying my own taxes. I don't have to collate all my receipts and my invoices and
Mm.
expenses, and that was something I didn't enjoy about being freelance, was doing my own books. Um, with staff as well, you can get health insurance, pension, you get other benefits. But then again, with freelance, you are your own boss in a sense. You pick when you work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Arguably, the pay is better as freelance
Yeah.
because you get paid a day rate instead of an annual salary. So depending on how much work you do, of course, that's the whole risk of freelance, is that if no one is booking you, then you're not going to have any income. Um, but there are pros and cons to both. It just depends on the person you are. Um, I
Yeah.
think in the future I would like to be freelance because it gives you I like the freedom that comes with it. Of if I wanted to have a month off, I don't have to tell anyone. I just don't accept any bookings, basically.
There we go.
Um,
Just push the contracts away. And of course, there's always a little bit of a trepidation, a little bit of a difficulty maintaining balance, isn't it? Because if you decline too many contracts, then you may start to develop a bit of a negative reputation, isn't it? Of
yeah,
like, oh, this guy
absolutely,
just doesn't
absolutely.
take any work anymore. Um,
Yeah, and you have to be 100% loyal to the contracts that you accept. because there's nothing worse in terms of being a freelancer than cancelling last minute because something else comes up, or you just can't be bothered to go, or you rather go on holiday or something.
Yeah.
So if you take a contract, you absolutely need to commit to it, because
Yes.
that's a really bad look.
Absolutely. Especially, I imagine, if it's like at the beginning of someone's career, if they choose to be
100%,
freelance,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then they'll just get bad reputation because these organizations, they talk to each other, don't they?
100%, yeah, 100%. It's like a community, and there is a union in the broadcast world,
Is
the
there?
audio engineer. Yeah, there is. So they make sure that the day rate is consistent
What's it
throughout.
called?
I'm not sure.
No worries. I'll Google
I'm
it.
not sure what the union's called, but they do make sure that it's consistent across the board, um, for the freelancers.
Are you
But
a
you're right.
member of the union?
No, because I'm staff.
Oh,
So,
yeah, of course.
yeah.
That makes sense. You're well looked
But
after.
yeah, well looked after. Yeah. But at the moment, I think it's good as well at the start of your career if you are staff, because I've now met loads of freelancers. We work with probably about 25 to 30 different audio engineering freelancers that come and help the staff team throughout the season, because there's only 4 audio staff members, but
Wow.
for a race weekend, the whole audio team is made up of about 10 people. So that means we have to get 6 or 7 freelancers in every week.
Yeah.
So I end up meeting a lot of them, and now I've got a lot of contacts that if I did ever choose to go freelance, I can just message them and say, is there, what work's going, anything that you're turning down, just sort of send my way, essentially. Because like I said, there's tons, there's loads and loads of work in the industry.
Brilliant.
Because it's not an industry that people often think about when they are deciding what career path they want to go down.
Absolutely. And this is why it's so good to talk to you about these things, because even though you're not strictly the music industry, there are still so many parallels. Like, I imagine that freelancing would work the same sort of way as well. You've got to network, you've got to create the community. And I know, before I became a teacher, I was a band manager for 3 years. And I know that you've got to have your little black book of loads and loads of session musicians who may be able to fill in if one of your band members can't make it on a certain night or something.
Absolutely, 100%, yeah.
Ah, that's brilliant. Well, I tell you what, seriously, I cannot thank you enough. I think that is more than enough, at least for this time. And hopefully, in the future, I'll be able to get you on again, talking a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're a freelancer, maybe when you're doing something else. Never know. But, mate, pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, thank you.